everyone. Welcome to the Find a Moment podcast, where we navigate the space between ideals and everyday life. We are your hosts, Gretchen Roberts and Jennifer Ford, and we look forward to finding a moment with you today. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Find a Moment podcast. We are really looking forward to starting this new series with you today. We are entering into a series called Home for the Holidays. We are going to discuss all of the upcoming holidays and all of the Burr months, as they say, and about how you can make home a place of respite and celebration and family and friends and fun, and how to live a sustainable life through all of those seasons and all of those celebrations. And we all kind of have an idea of home and memories of home. And for some of you, it may bring just a sense of nostalgia and a longing for a simpler time and memories of traditions and smells of things baking and the sound of laughter and family gatherings. And for others, it can bring back memories of hurt or abandonment or what you wish that you had but didn't. So no matter what our history of home, we can be people who restore the idea of home and allow God to redeem that brokenness and to make it a sacred place. So on our first episode, we're just going to talk about home and how we navigate the ideals and the everyday life. And we look forward to upcoming episodes where we're going to have really practical discussions with some experts in the field of home organization and simplification, and also some exciting interviews with dear friends of ours who have a lot to say about home and a lot of beautiful ideas. So we really just hope that this is a time that, as we're preparing for the holidays, that we can equip you with some very practical tips and then hopefully inspire you to think about home in a new way and help you to get through this season where you aren't feeling exhausted and depleted, and that you get to the particular holiday, whether it be Thanksgiving or Christmas or the New Year, and that you just kind of crash across the finish line. We really hope that when you get to those holidays and the day of, that you can just exhale and enjoy it. And a lot of that probably begins with planning. And so that's why we're starting this series a little early before we get into the thick of Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the planning that requires. So hopefully we can help you prepare so you will be ready for those seasons. So Jennifer, when we talk about home and, kind of preparing for the holidays and how kind of we all have an idea of home and memories of home, and how do you feel like that plays into how you as an adult and a wife and a mom, how does that play into how you think about home and think about the holidays in your home now that you're an adult?
Yeah, I think it's, when you have children and when you go through all the different seasons with your kids, like the different ages and stages, I think you connect with different parts of your memory of home because you're experiencing, it's kind of like you get a different view of, in some parts, your own life, and some of the memories that you have start to make a little bit more sense because you're viewing them, memories that I have of my family or my mom's reactions to things, or her, whether she preferred certain things or not. Now because I'm living through the holidays as a mom, it's helped me understand more of where she was coming from in a lot of ways, like with specific things. I think sometimes there's traditions that we kind of set into the ideals category for our own home because of what they created in us, like a sense of grounding and a sense of familiarity. And and just wanting to share that and pass that on. Like sometimes those traditions are certain, you watch this movie when you decorate the tree, and or you have this music playing when the kids come down on Christmas morning, whether it's things like that or recipes. Like there's this, and we'll have to share this really sweet recipe that was my grandmother's that she would always have. And so and we have it in her handwriting.
Oh, I love that.
It's for this cranberry salad made with and it's not like the stuff out of a can. It's made with fresh cranberries and orange juice, and you could put pecans in it if you want. Anyway, it's so
Mm.
delicious. And so my mom and my sister and I always make that. And we send pictures to each other on our group chat,
Oh, I love
our
that.
group text whenever we're making it. And I just bought cranberries for the first time on my grocery order this past week
Oh.
because they're like it's in my favorites, I guess, on the app, and it's never
Mhm.
in stock usually. And then because it's just a seasonal thing. So then this
Right.
past week when I was making my grocery order, they were in stock, and I said, Amelia, look, they have fresh cranberries. It's time.
Yay. It's arriving.
I know. So that was like my first real feeling of, of course we're in fall, and your pumpkin spice lattes and the pumpkin patches, all of that is fall, but anything like that was the first thing that really made me kind of shift my brain into thinking, okay, Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mean, I know it's around the corner because I look at the calendar, but just like practical, like real life things that kind of point you in that direction. But yeah, I
Right.
think for myself, a lot of the experiences that I had when I was younger have kind of informed as I've continued as a parent, like now with teens. It's kind of like it gives you like your lens gets a little bit cleaner as you get older with your family and you watch your kids get older. It's like my lens to understand my memories, like
Hmm.
that lens gets clearer, and it gives me some compassion
Yes.
for, particularly for my mom, because I think she felt like everything was on her.
Right.
My mom used to really resent decorating
Oh,
because it was so much. She said everybody wants it to look nice. Everybody wants it to feel like Christmas. Everybody wants it to look like Christmas, but nobody wants to do the work, and nobody realizes that it's work. You think I just enjoy pulling all this stuff down, sorting it, setting it all out, and then making you happy with it for a couple months, and then having to pack it all up myself.
wow.
And now I understand.
Yeah. As a child, did you feel guilty?
I
Like,
didn't understand. Yeah, I didn't understand why she didn't like it.
yeah,
Because in my mind, she's mom. She's the one who's responsible for creating this atmosphere of home and holiday.
yeah.
Why doesn't she like doing it? And I also didn't understand why, after all of these years of seeing her do it and take delight in doing it, and she had all of those, like what you have, Gretchen, the village, all
Mm.
the houses and all of that. She gave all of that to us a couple years ago, but she
Oh,
would set all of that out, and that was like this really beautiful artistic thing that she would kind of create every year.
right.
Like she enjoyed it at the time, but then eventually I think she felt like we just expected to kind of show up and everything be there and be done and look beautiful.
Hmm.
And there was like no regard for the work that went into it. And
Yeah,
we didn't understand. We thought she liked it. We thought she
right.
enjoyed it, and that was what she'd always kind of done. So I don't know. I mean, there was some confusion there. And I
Hmm.
don't know that I felt guilty. I just didn't understand. It was like, you've done all of this. We didn't know that it, sometimes
Right.
people do things, and I think it's like when mom is the one always cleaning up the kitchen, people think you're doing it because you like it. Or you're
Right.
doing, like, people don't realize that in some ways it's a mental burden. It's also an act of
Hmm.
sacrifice.
Right.
You lay parts of yourself down every day to care for your family. I did not understand. It just seemed like those two things didn't match. Like, you always do this, you do this every year, it always looks so beautiful. We thought it brought her joy.
Right.
She took pride in the creative process, and that we weren't thinking about the fact that it was work to have to pack it all up. And it is.
Hmm.
I can tell you now, it is a lot of work.
Right.
And I think over the years, it's made me have more of a minimalist approach
Mm.
to decorating. The last several years, we didn't really do any ornaments on the tree because we have so many boxes of ornaments.
Right.
And it just for some reason, it stresses me out.
Yeah,
And I know there's some people who like to go through the ornament. It's like telling the story of your family.
right.
But for me, sometimes I that feels like too much.
Hmm. It's so much to think about. It's really interesting. Does your mom decorate now? Like, what does she do at her home?
Very minimal.
Yeah.
She has this. It's really neat. Well, last year she had an art. She bought an artificial pre-lit tree, which she loved, and this might have been 2 years ago, and she kept it up for like a year. And she
Aw.
lives. She lives on the ocean, and she collects seashells and makes all these beautiful. I mean, she could sell them at the gift shops and stuff down there. These beautiful ornaments with glitter and all of these really lovely shells and I mean,
Mm.
really intricate stuff. And like she'll add gold detail. So she decorated it and she would find these little pieces of driftwood. I mean, just highly creative,
Oh,
like what you would see at Festival of Trees that they do
right.
every year here. But she left it up for like a year and it was beautiful because it's just like this coastal themed tree. And then she just decided she was done with it
Yeah.
and put it away. And she just has this wall mounted tree. It's kind of like the back of it is flat, but then the front
Hmm.
of it is kind of dimensional. And then but I think that stays up year round too.
Oh, neat.
She does like minimal
Yeah.
decor, like tabletop type stuff.
Hmm. Well, then, you talking about kind of her, making everything beautiful and everything for you guys, then it makes you think of like, well, what was her childhood like with
Hmm.
her Christmas experience that then made her kind of feel maybe that expectation. So there's such a generational thing too, probably of what she went through as a child and
Right,
what kind of expectations she brought into that.
right. I think too, over the years, I've gotten more minimalistic in what I desire. One, because it feels like a lot. Two, because in some ways I kind of feel like the world tries to steal value from the season of Advent and Christmas.
Mhm.
And in some ways, like that rebellious part of me says, I'm not going to do what the world does.
Right.
I want there to be a few beautiful things in my home that say, this is the season we're in. But other than that, I mean, we'll light candles and have the fire on and Christmas music.
Hmm.
But I mean, I have gotten more minimal with what I
Yeah.
do every year. What about you?
Well, when you were talking about that, it reminded me of, I can't remember where I read it, but they were talking about, I think I've shared before just about kind of being more into reading about, the history of the church and kind of the liturgical seasons and the church calendar. And so I read that, historically during the season of Advent, like you wouldn't even decorate until like Christmas Eve would be when you would even
Right,
put up a Christmas tree. And then it was kind of the 12 days of Christmas, after that you would
right.
celebrate. And so there's so many different ways to think about it. And I love decorating for Christmas. And it's so funny. I am the one that typically brings out all the bins and, puts away all the bins. But I honestly think I would do it all, even if it was just me in the house. Like,
Oh,
I just love getting out my little village pieces and setting them all up and my little carolers and kind of the things that I've collected over the years. And so I may have tried to kind of simplify some things over like I don't decorate, the whole house kind of thing. It's mainly like the living room and dining room and that kind of thing. But I really enjoy it. And so for me, I had to think, I enjoy this so much, but so I'm doing it for me, but what does my family enjoy about all, like so kind of where maybe your mom was doing the decorating and making it all beautiful because she thought you all would enjoy it. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of the one that's like, it's what I enjoy. So I had to remember like, well, or and think about, what do they enjoy and what is important to my children and my husband and my family about how home feels and looks and that kind of thing. So, but I definitely like I'm the youngest of a blended family. And so there were five of us growing up. And so I was the youngest. So I feel like there's something about being the youngest that you kind of see this, the wonder and everything. You have such kind of expectations because you see all your older siblings go through all the seasons and all the things and that I don't know, it just made me really have this longing to hold on to all of the traditions of home and holidays and like I just wanted it all to last forever, you know. And to the point that it was, you know, entering into marriage and having a family and realizing, oh, this person that's coming together with you, they have their own traditions. And so you have to kind of meld those. And so I remember, you know, for our family growing up, one specific thing was we always opened stockings Christmas morning. That was like the first thing you did. And they were all lined up going up the stairwell, you know. And so you or up the staircase. And so you would come down and everybody, you know, that was the first thing you did was open your stocking on Christmas morning. Well, my husband, they did stocking presents and they did that on Christmas Eve. And I was like, that is, no, that's not when you do stockings. And so it was kind of a thing of like, we had to decide, well, what are we going to do? You know, well, we ended up doing stockings on Christmas Eve because there were other things that I didn't want to compromise on. So I could compromise on the stockings. But it's been, you know, over the years, it's been a really sweet time with the kids that we do just little things in their stockings, but it kind of helps to appreciate those little things because that's all you're opening on Christmas Eve. And we go to the Christmas Eve service at church and then come home and open those. So learning how to compromise because I love it so much that that has been one of the challenges of, you know, how do I make sure everyone else loves this and enjoys it? And then I think part of maybe they can correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think part of their enjoyment is seeing how giddy and how much I enjoy it. Like, I think they kind of maybe see a different part of me that kind of enters into that Hallmark Christmas mode. So, yeah, there's so much to think about as far as our memories of home, the nostalgia, the traditions, and all of that. And so, one thing that we like to do is talking about how we navigate this space between ideals and everyday life. And I think we have to start with what are our ideals and are those healthy ideals? Are those the ideals we should have? So, in thinking about home and even broader as far as home in general, and I think the holidays bring the emphasis on home more because people are coming home and gathering at home. But really, you know, we're cultivating our homes all year long. So I think our ideal of home continues beyond the holidays. Jennifer, what would you know, in thinking about the ideals of home and the ideals of home for the holidays, how have you navigated like your ideals and the everyday life in those areas?
I definitely have observed a shift in my ideals over the years. When the girls were younger, I kind of had this idea of, every night during Advent, we sit down and we do our devotional and we light the candle. And there were nights when that went fine. There were other nights where I just felt like, why am I the only one who cares? Should I continue to, should I continue to try? Is this,
Right.
if I give up or if I say, that's fine, we don't have to do this, if there's resistance or, impatience, and not that I made it take forever, even just something very short and simple, I did question, okay, if I just say that's fine, we're not enjoying this, does that signal a lack of importance to my family? Will my
Mhm.
family say, well, gosh, we didn't think she'd really stop doing it?
Right.
Wow, well, it must not be that important if she's going to let go of it that easily. I need to actually ask them, Like, do they remember that? And,
Right.
did they kind of think through that? Lucy's looking at me, nodding her head, yes.
We need to have we need to do a home for the holidays episode with our children,
Yes, please.
and then
I
they
would
can
love that.
tell us what they can tell us all the things that they haven't told us yet.
I'm ready for that. Because maybe someone will say, Mom, you don't have to get all that stuff out. Or maybe they'll say, we love it and we want to help this time. And I'll say, okay. I think ideals are that the home is tidy and that the fireplace is on. We have a gas fireplace, which we use all the time in the winter. I think the ideal would be that there's, some kind of good smelling food in the crock pot, fresh bread that I love to bake.
Mm.
And we've switched to battery powered candles. Maybe that's lame, but it feels a little safer with having kitties. And
Oh,
they come
yeah.
on timers. They have little remote timers. And
Oh, that's
so
so
I have
fun.
them on our mantle and on the dining table and in the bathroom downstairs. And so they'll come on at the same time every morning. So
That's
in
so
the winter,
smart.
yeah, so in the winter I'll set them so that when we come down in the morning, they're already on, which is really,
Oh,
it's atmosphere. I think
yes.
a lot of it is atmosphere. So candles, fireplace, and having food prepared, which requires planning,
Hmm.
right? You have to take the time to do that. And that's the ideal. And that we observe in some way the sacred part of
Hmm.
leading through Advent. And I don't think I could handle, and I don't think my family would ever agree to waiting to decorate until Christmas Eve. I've listened to Cindy Rollins, and in her book, I can't remember what it's called, but an Advent devotional going through the Handel's Messiah. So
Oh,
you read
yes.
an excerpt of scripture and then part of the oratorio every day leading through Advent. But she talks, and there's recipes in that book too, but she talks about in there how they wait until the 24th to decorate.
Wow.
That I don't know that I could do that, but I definitely don't put everything away until at least until the 12 days of Christmas are over. Maybe I'm just kind of assuming it and not articulating it, but I think part of it too is just that there's sort of a sacred, that there's just sort of a sacredness to that time, and that we, maybe extend a little bit of extra grace.
For me, when I think of home, as far as ideals, home is actually one of the categories in my rule of life. And so trying to, with my rule of life to get to where there's one sentence that kind of defines my ideal, I feel like that was a process for me to get to with home of like, can I, encapsulate my ideals into one sentence? So where I have landed for this season is my rule of life is I will subdue and simplify our home so it can be a life-giving place for all who are there. So that is kind of what has guided my idea of home and kind of my ideals, especially with in the season of having five children all at home. I love the word subduer because it's not that everything is perfect, but it is kind of walking into a room and how can I subdue this space? How can I bring a little bit of order? And so it's not how can I make it Instagram worthy and that kind of thing. It's just a little bit of, looking at a space and subduing. And then part of my heart for home is that I want it to be my home to be a place when people enter, that they feel like they can exhale, that they can rest, that they feel cared for, and that it's comfy and cozy and welcoming. And so that's kind of that life-giving place for all who enter is part of my rule of life. And so that has really helped to guide me because my personality tends to be one that wants perfection and that wants everything clean and the baseboards clean and and all the things. And so it can be overwhelming to think of home in that way of having those expectations for yourself. So I just had to clarify, like those are one of those situations where it's this is not a healthy ideal. This is not a sustainable ideal. You cannot have a home that is completely clean all the time. And what is the scripture that the stable without oxen is clean, or is that I have to look that one up. I can't remember the exact scripture reference, but I also just yesterday saw this quote that said, homemaking without God becomes just productivity. Homemaking with God becomes worship. And so I feel like so much of my maybe natural tendencies is the productivity part. And, but that it actually is a way that you worship, with your home being a place that even invites that kind of worship and awareness of God, whether it's with bringing in, which is something I feel like you do so well, Jennifer, is bringing in like natural elements, whether it's art that is nature or physical things from nature, and just bringing kind of God's creation into your environment. I think that cultivates that sense of worship and awe and wonder in your home. So that's been kind of how my ideal has kind of evolved to a point of where it is now. And I feel like during the holidays, that I definitely go into more of the subduing, not necessarily the simplifying, more of the subduing and the life giving. And then in the new year is the simplifying part. But I do feel like the everyday life, I feel like with home, it can have a big, like we said, that space between our ideals and everyday life. I feel like home for me can kind of have that big gap because we have, or at least I have historically had such idealistic ideals that you can feel that the gap between ideals and everyday life can really feel huge, especially when you really live in your home. With homeschooling and five children, and I mean we use every space of our home all the time. And so it's not like you can just tend to an area once a week and then it's not used again. It's every space has been utilized. So I think the everyday life has been a place for me to really relinquish control and to relinquish some unhealthy ideals and expectations, and because it could be frustrating for me. I remember when everyone is little and there's just mess after mess after mess, and it can be hard, and it is hard to feel like you can subdue and maintain and do all the things yourself. But then I think that's also where, like you said, as far as like involving the kids with bringing down all the Christmas bins and stuff, there are ways, and I think there are important ways to involve your children in the everyday life of home and caring for home. And that was one of the things we really just out of pure necessity too, was our children had to contribute to the dishes and the laundry and the cleaning of spaces and the vacuuming and the mopping and the windows and all the things. And so I really feel like they left equipped with being able to do all the things of home. They could all cook and clean and do laundry. And I think they could see to take the initiative to do the things that needed to be done, which I'm not there yet with the younger ones, but but I feel like by the time the older ones left, like they could look at a room and see what needed to be subdued and maintained and taken care of. So I feel like that's kind of a goal too with launching our children, is kind of bringing them into to that aspect of it too.
You were talking about, the gap between your ideals and everyday life with home and holiday, and I think that's one of the places where I think because of that gap over the years, and my ideals also being maybe not being mine and not my family's ideals,
Right.
I think as women, as mothers, as wives, we're responsible for so much, and everybody in our home just kind of allows that to be our role, and they expect it and they go along with it. Like whatever mom says is for dinner, that's what's for dinner. But then, as you know, when it comes to traditions and things, especially as they start to get older, but even when they're younger, like they don't all want the same things. And so, at what point do I say, this is my ideal? This is
Right.
my family's ideal. And I didn't have conversations with Carrie and with the girls and say, okay, does everybody want to do an Advent devotional every night? I didn't do that. I just said, this is what we're going to do. And then it didn't go well. And then I felt frustrated. And so then I think that kind of pattern over the years and me kind of having it's expectations too. I think the expectations are kind of part of that. That kind of was part of what motivated my heart to minimize, because
Hmm.
minimizing as far as like the things that I do externally to prepare and decorate. I mean, I'm going to do the some of the recipes that we love. I'm always going to make grandmommy's cranberry salad and the breakfast casserole, and there are things that I will continue to do that I know they love because they
Right.
consume those things and they participate. But then at the same time, I felt, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, maybe more, I felt like the Lord was just saying, Jennifer, this doesn't have to be this isn't between you and your family. This is ultimately between me and you. This is us. You come to me. You want sacred time during the Advent season. You come to me. You turn to me. You worship
Hmm.
me. You prepare this meal, like what you were saying, like the way that we provide for our home, the way that we tend and care for our home. It can either be an act of productivity or it can be, and when I work from a place of productivity, that really quickly develops a spirit of entitlement in me.
Right. Right.
Oh, entitlement. I was talking to Amelia the other day about, I really struggle with entitlement, like at times, feeling like, well, I do all of this.
Hmm.
So these other things should be done for me. And that's entitlement. But when we do it out of a heart for service to our family, and that also has to be within healthy boundaries. And like I was telling you
Right.
before we started recording, like there's things that have happened this past week that in some ways I felt like I was entitled to things being a certain way, but I don't even have the energy right now to communicate, hey, it would have been
Right.
better if this had happened, but because I didn't even have the energy for that. But as I did those tasks that I felt like I was entitled to have been done for me, to have already been done,
Right.
as I did those tasks, I just asked the Lord, like,
Mm.
Lord, would you just bless my work right now? Would you just
Yes.
let this be a way that I honor you by loving my family, do everything out of reverence to Christ? I
Mm.
don't want to slam these dishes. I don't want to.
Right. Oh,
I'm like,
that's so
this isn't.
good.
I didn't even have the energy for that. Like my
Right.
spirit was just tired. Me sacrificing my voice to, saying this should have been done this way, or I've done all these things, so these things should have already been done. it that sometimes that requires so much, it always requires so much energy to do that, and I did not want to
Right.
sacrifice the peace of my home for getting my voice heard. And there will be a time when I have those conversations, but it won't be right now. And
Yeah.
there's 100 little things every day that we have the opportunity to handle that way.
Right.
We are given those opportunities, and how we handle that and respond to that. So going back to, am I doing this out of a heart of productivity, or am I doing this with a heart of worship? And I think you have to be really careful. Like you need to know when to use your voice to communicate boundaries, and just to
Yes.
communicate needs. It's not even a boundary thing. Sometimes it's just needs,
Right.
communicating those things. But moving into the holidays when there are more expectations, and there's also more demands on your time. I don't know that I like the word demands, but more things that are going to consume your time, like things at church, the sing along, the Christmas party here, just all the different things. I don't know. I think maybe now we're recording this in mid-October. Now is the time I feel like to have those conversations with my family and say, what's important to you?
Right. What do you want this season to
Right.
feel like and look like? And yeah,
Right. What's important to you? Are we doing things that I feel burdened to
Mhm.
do every year because I feel like everybody wants this, and if it's not like this, then they're going to be disappointed? Am I doing things where you're like, Mom, we don't even care about that?
right.
But is it an option to watch Little Women while we put up the tree? No, that is not an option. We are doing that because that is important to me. We, the last several years, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years, I don't know. We watched, it's been longer than that. We'll watch I think it's the Winona Ryder one, but we'll watch, I'll put Little Women on while we put the tree up, and
Oh,
that is
that's so
sweet.
fun.
I
Yeah.
love that. But sometimes I feel like putting up the tree just feels like it takes so long. And we have a
Yes.
pre-lit tree, and sometimes the lights don't all work, and that makes me want to go break things. Seriously. So having a movie on helps me to kind of hang in there because it gives me a good distraction. You're laughing. I know it's ridiculous, probably.
No, I just love your honesty. It's so great. It's so refreshing.
I mean, we quit doing natural trees a really long time. When we lived in Hampstead, that was 2015. That was when we bought our first pre-lit tree. And I was like, hallelujah. We plug it in and ah. But when those lights start to go out, and that tree was an investment. I'm like, we're not getting rid of this tree. I will redo the lights. But every year when I plug everything to connect everything and plug it in, I'm like, Lord, please. Like
Let it work.
this is your chastisement. I'll receive that.
See, and 26 years later, I'm still vacuuming up needles from the live tree every year.
But it's so beautiful and it
That's
smells good.
one of my, at least at this stage, it's one of my non-negotiables. So,
A real tree.
yes.
Do
Yeah.
you have a tradition for going to get the tree?
Well, that has kind of morphed over time too. We started out going and cutting down a tree together, which was
Where
so
would you go?
well. That was when we were in Pennsylvania. So they just had these
Okay.
beautiful, Well, then we went to where we would go to North Carolina mountains and then cut it down and drive all the way back home. And now Daddy gets it on his way home from work. Oh,
Okay, I have two really quick Christmas tree stories.
oh, fun.
Either of them are from my family, so I can laugh about it. Well, I would still laugh. Well, the first one is funny. Carrie's sister and her husband, they used to get a live tree every year, and I think the last year that they did that, all of a sudden had like this massive hatch out of baby praying mantises because there was a praying mantis egg pouch on the live tree. And when it
Oh my
came in their
goodness.
house, I guess they got cozy and warm and decided to be born. And there were praying mantises everywhere in their house.
Oh my goodness.
Um, and then another sweet story is we have a friend, they go to the Christmas tree lot and they always pick out the jankiest, saddest looking Christmas tree and they take it home. Like
I
a Charlie
love
Brown tree.
that.
They take it home and they decorate it. But
They
she
give
also
it
has
love.
I mean, I think she has like a dozen trees, Christmas trees in her house. At one
Oh
point, they
my
had a
goodness.
Christmas room at their house.
Sometimes we will still, like, if we go to Mike's farm in time to, like,
Oh.
pick one out that's pre-cut or whatever, we'll do that. And in Illinois, there were tree farms. And when I was growing up, and we would go and, like, take the saw and cut it down ourselves. And there's just something so neat about that. Depends on where you live, if you can do that or not. But, in thinking about the ideals of home, I read a book by Jennifer Pepito called Habits for a Sacred Home. And my word for this year is sacred. And so this book kind of coincided with that, but it has been really good. And she just, in the introduction, just talks about the need for sacred homes. And so it really helps you to kind of think about what your idea of home is. And it's so much more than just a place to eat and sleep and be off for your day. It really can be a sacred place. And she shares a quote from Confucius, which he said, "The strength of a nation derives from the integrity of home." And then Jennifer says, I believe that this is true. In a time when the foundations of culture are being rapidly destroyed, we can apply these common practices to our home. So she says, we can be those people described in Isaiah 58:12 who raise up the foundations of many generations, who repair the breach and restore the dwelling places. And the verses from Isaiah are, and your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. We don't know what the future holds, but as we faithfully follow the Word of God, we can create sacred homes, places of joy and hope and life, homes that can push back the darkness until the return of the King. And so, thinking about Jennifer, you were leading worship at church last Sunday, and you talked about pushing back the darkness. And so, thinking about how individually we can push back the darkness with prayer and with worship, but that actually our home can also do that, that it can be a place that when people come in, they feel a retreat from the darkness, that they can feel that when they leave our home, that they have been empowered to be bringers of light and to push back the darkness. So it just really confirmed to me the ideal of home is a place that can be a light in this broken world, and that it can be a place to prepare and bless those who are going out into this dark world, and that home is the place that we can change the next generation. I have enjoyed this introduction of home and home for the holidays, and just thinking of all that is to come in these weeks ahead. There's such excitement and anticipation for the holiday season. Do you have any final thoughts as we kind of close up this introduction to home for the holidays?
I needed to hear everything that you've said. And to be honest, what's happening with our family right now, lots of busy things, and my mind and my body are just, my spirit is tired. And so, no, and I think I have been already kind of feeling the tension of knowing that we're launching towards the holiday season, and I'm already tired. And
Hmm.
we're already busy, and knowing that there's a lot happening with our family, good things, but just a lot of time involved all the way up, like almost to Thanksgiving. So I've kind of felt like, am I even going to be able to enjoy?
Hmm.
Am I going to be able to enjoy moving into this season? I already feel like this is the time I should be kind of storing up some energy and planning, and but hearing the things that you're saying has just been really encouraging and just a good reminder. And I'm also really thankful for the timing of it, because now's the time when I can do some meal planning, do some freezer meals. Like that's a
Mhm.
practical thing that I can do. But it's been good for me to just be reminded of what is our role? What this is going to sound cheesy. What is my role? What are my goals?
Mhm.
And now's the ideal time to have the conversations with my family
Right.
individually, and just say what's important to you. Like, as you're a teenager, as we're moving into Thanksgiving and Christmas season, what are the things that you really value? Like, what's really special? Because I might end up hearing things that I didn't think were a big deal, that maybe I would have, in my like movement towards simplifying and minimizing, I might have said, nobody cares about that. And then I hear that, oh, this thing is
Right.
really important to them. Okay, we'll keep doing that. So could you help me with that? Do you want to
Yeah.
do that together? So just, it's helping me to have an intentional mindset. And I would just say to people listening, it's never too late to ask the people that you share home with. It's never too late to say, what do you value
Yes.
about this? Do you have expectations? What are the things that you would like for us to do together? Let's maybe pick like the top two non-negotiables. So just being reminded that communicating, creating just a sacred space, something
Mhm.
that's just between you and the Lord, and asking Him, how can I make our home a place of worship, a place of light? a place of care. I would even say being intentional about finding a way to make it sustainable for yourself as Sally Clarkson says, that we're the conductors of our home.
Yes.
And I think we kind of take that on naturally. That's sort of this instinctive thing. And so how can we find ways to remain energized and grounded and stable and sturdy
Mm.
as all of the extra things, I don't want to say demands, but as all of the extras
Yes.
kind of on our plate this season.
That's so good. And you just summarized some great action steps.
Yeah, what's funny is like that's kind of where my brain was going with it. I think I'm telling myself to do those things
Yes,
too.
for sure. For sure. And you're right. I think when they're younger, we make all of those choices. And so as your children grow and become more involved in the process, I love that of asking all of your people, what is important to you and what does Christmas and Thanksgiving, all the holiday, what does it mean to you? And what are things that we can continue or discontinue? And that's great. Well, I'm excited to share this holiday season together. We'll be back next week and we're going to get into how we have prepared for the holidays over the years, and we can share our mistakes and what we've learned and what's worked and all those good things. So we look forward to finding a moment with you next week.
Thank you.